Steph Curry with a bold claim. This is the most skilled era in NBA history. What does he mean? And do we agree? On today's show.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast.
What are they going to say now?
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yo, what's good, everyone? Welcome to the Locked On Warriors. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances right now at monarchmoney.com. Use code LOCKEDONNBA. You will get 50% off your first year. Check out the show on YouTube, wherever you get your audio podcasts. Hit that subscribe button. Hit that thumbs up. We very much appreciate it. Season is right around the corner. Evan Giddings is the guest on today's show. We'll get to him momentarily. But the agenda on today's program, a little bit of a deep dive later in the program on Quinton Post, kind of the ceiling that we think he has entering the season. But a lot of the meat and potatoes are about two comments that we heard, one from the greatest shooter in NBA history, the other from a commissioner that seems a little tone deaf in Adam Silver. Silver is saying that this is a highlights-based league, so fans should not be too upset if they have to miss some games because there's content everywhere. They can watch the day after. Highlights-based league. And then Steph Curry providing us the other topic, boldly claiming, audaciously, that this is the most skilled era in NBA history. Here's Evan Giddings. All right, Ev, so Steph Curry comes out with a new book, actually September 9th was the date, and it's called Shot Ready. Talks about just his journey through life, some of the philosophies he has, always staying ready, always taking care of things, learning, discipline, just all the good stuff. Went on the media tour, and there was a lot of talk about the Olympics on Fallon and, just about the team in general. And one that really stood out was him saying it's the most skilled NBA era ever, which I think, it's a bold claim, right? For someone that doesn't always give it to you direct. He gave it to you direct there, but I think it's a correct take. 2000s may have been, there was some balance there to some degree. You had a little bit of, skill and some bigs that could stretch it, but I don't see any debate there. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I think it was on Good Morning America, and Curry's so great at this. Well, also, I don't know if it's intentional or not, but it kind of seemed like a throwaway line. Like he was like, well, it probably is the most skilled era, ever. And then he gave his quick explanation, guys being able to play 1 through 5, shoot it from all ranges on the court and stuff like that. I don't know if he meant it to be as incendiary it was, but it's a bold claim. And I think I think he's accurate. I do think that the skill set within the paint area, or perhaps even inside the 3-point line, is not what it used to be because the game is so much different. But I do think that you have to do so much more to be on the floor in order to basically make the league. The top end of stars, the first team All-NBA players from, the 90s, I don't think their skill set is in question, but I think Curry's talking about the guys who are on the back half of the roster, guys that are having to step in and load manage when players are load managed. Like everyone on an NBA team now can shoot, defend, pass, score at some sort of level higher than it's ever been. So I didn't necessarily have a problem with it, but I'm curious what you thought.
Yeah, you just go back and watch. I don't know how it popped up on my algorithm months ago, but it was just the spacing from Heat Spurs. I want to say around 2010, 2011, around those years. And dude, they're just daring people to shoot threes. The paint is clogged. It is a completely different game. It's so much faster, so much space and pace, so much shooting. I was talking about Grady Dick the other day on the show for some reason. He was shooting 35% through his NBA career. And I'm like, if Grady Dick can, step it up into the high 30s or whatever. And it's like, dude, that's everyone on the floor is hitting 35% at this point, So for someone that prides themselves in shooting, that's how different the league is, and 35%, nothing to slouch at.
No, and 35% is below league average. Last year it was, I think, 36 or 37%. So back in 2010 or 2005, 35%, that's a really good percentage. And nowadays that's that like Brandon Pajemski shot 33 or 34% this season. And we're not sure if he's going to ever evolve into a great shooter.
No, he shot 37, didn't he?
I know he shot 38 his rookie year. I mean, I'm just kind of basing it off of.
I think it was 37. It was like 33 the first half, and then he stepped it up. So I've talked about pods a lot on this show. So I think I have that one down. But
yeah, no, you're right. He ended at 37. So he ended at league average. But the fact of the matter is, you can shoot. I think players across the league have to shoot it more than ever. And if that is the skill that Curry's talking about, I think it's the most valuable skill in the NBA. I just think that it maybe if I could reframe my first answer, I would just say skills that require you to play with space. Because in 2010 and prior, there was more of a post presence and there weren't as many good shooters. It also meant that inside the 3-point line was far more clogged. So you needed to have more skill to get a shot off, to finish through contact. Nowadays, I think it works both ways, because since you're being stretched out as a defense, if you can't defend in space, which is a skill set that it feels like is waning nowadays, you can't play, and you're just going to get hunted time in and time out. So I think that what Curry's talking about is more perimeter-based skill, and that's unquestionably never been in a higher level, I think.
No, and Adam Silver actually recently was talking about streaming NBA, how it's harder and harder to watch it for a lot of fans. And he said, it's a highlights league. Like, we have content everywhere. Our content teams are delivering highlights. You can watch the games that way. It's a highlights league, to which it is. Like, the game needs highlights. If not, you're watching Virginia Cavaliers basketball from, the late 2010s or whatever. You're watching a little, who was it? Former Warrior, point guard, Ty Jerome, former Virginia Cavalier. That was one of the better ones that could put the ball in the bucket from Virginia. But highlights league, you need highlights, but at the same time, you got to watch full NBA games and get the build up and the character build up. And, game 5 of Rockets Warriors, game 6 of Rockets Warriors, when Houston thinks they have it, and you see the build up of the series and the tensions going that you don't see on your traditional highlights. And then not just that, the IQ, the plays that make the game awesome that don't go on the highlights, because let's get real now. You don't see every highlight of every game. You don't see the Amos highlights, the things that truly make it a pleasurable viewing experience, that I think Adam Silver is very tone deaf on in that sense.
Yeah, whether he's right or wrong, that's, I think, unintelligent to sell as a product. I mean, you're basically selling your league, if you call it a highlight league, as something that can be digested through social media. And I realize it mostly is, but you can't have your fan base or your audience making judgments about, or you shouldn't encourage them to make judgments about players or teams or individuals based on 10 seconds or less. That shouldn't be what you're selling. If you think about where baseball has had to take a leap, it's been in pressing things on social media, trying to create highlights and create urgency. But the actual product itself, Chuck, is kind of it kind of lends itself to long form content. The NFL, meanwhile, is probably the perfect balance of both, where you can get as much in your fantasy football and gambling, sort of wants as you can sitting down and watching a full 3-hour game. The NBA, to me, should be encouraging more people to watch longer form content to create more educated fans and more interested fans, as opposed to saying, well, just learn about John Moran's dunk last night, and that's all you need to know about the Memphis Grizzlies.
Yeah, I mean, you get a lot of people, frankly, that don't watch a lot of NBA because, I'm from Cincy, man, and a lot of people there, they gravitate towards college basketball only. I was both, and the non-NBA fans, they would always question Draymond, and that's what you get from highlights. If you're just watching Warriors highlights, you're not seeing some of the excellence that he brings. You don't even know Kevon Looney exists. I don't know if he's ever really popped up in a Warriors highlight for the 20 rebound performance that he had against Memphis at Chase Center or something like that. There are players that just go unsung that are crucial to the game, and you need those types of players to win. And it's not just the high flyers and everything, but I thought that was a good little cross weave with Curry saying that it is the most skilled league right now. Coming up, we're continuing the conversation, discussing Adam Silver talking about the highlight culture that the NBA has, why a Warriors player, an expensive Warriors player, that's a tease, is not a beneficiary of this highlight culture that he speaks of and needs the long form format. Also, the top playmakers in the game currently per Evan Giddings. That's straight ahead on Locked On Warriors. Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there's Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or on your phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. If you put off organizing your finances, Monarch is for you. It does the heavy lifting. You can link all your accounts in minutes. You can see clear data visuals, get smart categories of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. Thank God. Don't let your financial opportunity slip through the cracks. You can easily review finances with your partner, maximize your investments, increase your savings rate, and keep a clear view of your financial health week to week and long term. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONNBA. These are the Performance Denim Slim Straights, 5 times the stretch of traditional jeans. They combine athletic wear with leisure. It's nice, and I'll be wearing them this weekend to a camping trip outside of the Denver area. The reason that I will be wearing them, they're very comfortable. I told you about the stretch. Also, they got Cool Max technology. It regulates your temperature, wicks away moisture. It is perfect for all times, whether it's warm, whether it's chilly. Versatile pant right here. I told you about the 5 times the stretch. They feel like a comfy pair of joggers, but they look like you're ready for a night out. I mean, for those of you on YouTube, look at these things. They're wonderful. Doer does combine classic jeanswear style with the comfort and performance of athletic wear. It's the best of both worlds. Once you try them, you're not going back, folks. I tell you, you are not. And guess what? You can get a deal on us. They got a new store in San Francisco. It's open now, 567 Hayes Street in Hayes Valley. Mention my code LOCKEDONSF. You'll get 15% off your first order, or shop online at shopdoer.com/LOCKEDONSF. That is Doer, DUER. You'll get 15% off. Who would be your first team all skilled players in the NBA, and how would you define skilled? Like, to me, when I think of skilled, it's like, all right, Anthony Edwards, that is skilled.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, one of the players that, if I'm thinking, I kind of do relate, like
Curry, obviously, but
yeah, Curry is one of the more skilled players in basketball. I mean, Kyrie Irving is certainly one of them. Of the bigs, I think you got to look at Jokic as one of the most skilled players in basketball. Durant, I think, is still up there, and for sure, Tatum, before his Achilles tear, certainly for me. I mean, a lot of the best players are the most skilled players. I think that someone like, even on the Warriors, who may not get a lot of shine because his game isn't super aesthetically pleasing, would be someone like Jimmy Butler. When you said that social media is responsible for a lot of our opinions on players, Jimmy Butler is one of the first people I thought of, because when they made that trade, a lot of people, I don't think, were super familiar with Jimmy Butler's game. But if you had watched the Miami Heat over a long period of time while he was there, if you'd watched some of those playoff runs, you would have clearly realized that this is a winning basketball player whose skill, as far as passing, defending, being able to get a shot when he needs to, getting to the free throw line, some of the small things that he does, like, that's a winning player. But because he's not dunking on people, he's not making 12 threes a game, he's not scoring 50 points a night, this isn't a guy that a lot of people thought was a super sexy sort of trade.
Well, Locked On came out with their top 100 NBA players, and Jimmy Butler was listed at 29th, behind Ja Morant at 28th, Garland 27, Trae Young 26. And the list goes on and on. You can check it out on past shows. I'm not going to go through the entire thing, but Butler at 29, I mean, it's hard to argue right now because there's so many different skill sets. There's so many different ways to get it done. A lot of times we do correlate it with statistical greatness and a combination of your team being really good when you see a lot of these guys. And Jimmy Butler is one of those dudes that it's not necessarily statistical greatness. It's not even statistical consistency. It's just the fact that he makes your team better with everything he does. I was saying the other day, like I was watching some of his not highlights, not a highlights based league, but you can watch it by quarters sometimes, right? It's a little better that way.
Yeah.
I watched the fourth quarter game 7 against the Rockets, man, and he's such a good decision maker to where when you get it to him, he gets it and he rips it and he gets to his spot. He's always processing and always moving. He's never just sitting there without a purpose. And he's one of the smartest players in the game, I would say, but 29th right there. Do you think we underestimate how good a season? Because you said he could be an all-star this year. Are we underselling how good a season he could potentially have? And maybe not just a season, next two, like a good finish out to a career in his mid to late 30s at this point.
I actually think that's pretty fair where they have Jimmy Butler ranked, because I would have him maybe higher than like Trae Young. I think Trae Young's kind of overrated, but in that fringe top 25 category, I think that's pretty accurate. And that's also a borderline all-star. You know, you think about the 12 guys on the roster, top 24, you might have a couple of guys that sneak in because of injuries and whatnot. So, you know, roughly 26 to 28 players are going to be all-stars or all-star caliber. I think Jimmy Butler's absolutely right there. I think that a couple of years ago, he's a no doubt surefire top 25 player, but because of, I think, the lack of availability, you know, certainly a diminished athletic skill set, Jimmy Butler is, I think, you know, behind Jaren Jackson Jr., right in front of Chet Holmgren, right around and sort of in a different category of the Jaylen Browns of the world. I think that Jimmy Butler is pretty fairly ranked if you ask me about that top 30 group.
Yeah, but I do, and I've said this before, like he's overpaid, but he's also underrated to a degree because of what you said about the highlights-based league. You're not seeing as much of him. If ESPN's running a 2-minute clip, you know, you're going to get a minute 15 of Curry and then a few plays from Jimmy there, but he's involved in all of them. If you roll the tape back about 20 seconds, he's doing something, whether it's setting a screen, whether it's, you know, high post, finding someone down low. I saw a play from the Rockets series, I believe it was. I can't remember which game. I was going on a tangent through these quarters, man, just salivating for some basketball, like Ivan Pavlov's dogs, man. And was watching some of these highlights, and he gets to the high post, and he'll do this thing sometimes where, you know, he's looking for Curry, he's looking for Buddy, someone to suck some defense to him and create gravity. And he'll just kind of look, and a defender will look the other way. And next thing you know, Jimmy processes quickly. He sees Draymond kind of slip. He sees, you know, someone in the dunker spot, feeds it to Post, whatever. And the Warriors are so good at that, man. And that's another thing, continuing to kind of dictate the theme of the show today, that this is a very skilled league and not a highlights-based league right now, at least when you're talking about most of the best teams. And I think even in this day and age where the Warriors aren't what they were 5 years ago, well, I guess 3 years ago at this point, and, you know, specifically, let's go back 6-7 years. It's not that, but it's still a very pretty, aesthetically pleasing brand of basketball. And I'm just extremely excited to get this thing tipped off. And I mean, at least get the media day portion going in a few weeks here, and let's rock, man.
Yeah, I mean, I think Jimmy Butler, having a full season of Butler, I think is going to be fantastic. You know, the question of games is always one that is impossible to answer. But I do feel like the Warriors are going to get a locked-in Jimmy Butler, because this is one thing that he has not accomplished in his career, is winning a championship. And he got a taste of the possibility last year. You know, I don't know if I would pick the Warriors to win a title this season, certainly, but Jimmy Butler got to the second round. Probably felt like if they had Steph Curry, they could have got to the Western Conference Finals. I think that's enough to me, combined with the urgency that he has at the back end of his career with only 1 year left after this, maybe only one good year left as a player to try and get this thing done. So I think that Jimmy Butler is somebody who understands, yes, the business of basketball. He wants his contract. He got paid. He impacted winning. And now this is a year where he can lock in and give the Warriors his best. So Jimmy Butler, to me, you're right. He's not going to jump off of the top 25 or top 30 charts as a player that does anything necessarily dynamic except for win percentage. It's almost like we talk about him like we talk about quarterbacks in football, that it doesn't really matter what your numbers are as long as the W column keeps being filled with ones every single week. And so I, for one, am very much looking forward to Jimmy Butler this year because I think the winning percentage for the Dubs is going to be significantly higher with him on the court than not.
Yeah, it's like when Steelers fans back in the day would try to claim that Big Ben still had it when he had like 19 ice packs on his knees and a bionic shoulder. They'd win, and he was just do his job. He was old, reliable. You couldn't bring him down. So there are players like that, man. Not comparing Jimmy Butler to Big Ben. There's no similarities.
Big Ben in his prime. How about that?
Just how good a season can Quinton Post have for Golden State? We debate that coming up. NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you are ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5. If your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets you can use across the app. I love FanDuel because it's got everything for everyone. All the sports, the prop bets, the player props, the futures, the live lines, the over-unders, the betting the next play. Literally, it keeps the game fun, interesting, whether you're watching your own team or just casually watching the team from the town over. It's quick, easy, and the best way to add a little more energy to your Sundays. Are you ready to play? If so, download the FanDuel app by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That is FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. Okay. Quinton Post, not entering his prime per years in the association, but at this point, his age, like he's a seasoned vet at 25 years of age, maybe even 26 at this point. Quinton Post's impact this season, considering the Warriors haven't even signed Al Horford yet, although that's the notion that is going to happen, almost likely at this point being reported. However, Quinton Post still, until the John Hancock is signed with the Feather, he is not a Golden State Warrior, and your primary big is Quinton Post. How would you feel if it somehow ended up being that way? Quinton Post, the main guy heading into the season, or knock on wood, anything happens to Al Horford, Quinton Post would be your primary big with Trace Jackson Davis available as well.
I wouldn't feel great about it. I feel better than the center situation going into last season because it was basically Draymond Green, and you didn't know at the time you had Post coming in, and TJD quickly got played out of the rotation. Kevon Looney didn't have a ton left. So you feel better about it than entering last year. But this year, I think that Post on some nights looks really good, and on other nights you wonder how he's going to be able to defend actual NBA bigs. But the fact that he shot 41% as a rookie, as a 7-footer, lends me to believe that he's going to play a lot this season for the Warriors. I think the sort of platoon or the enticing platoon of he and Horford and perhaps even TJD, that's a center threesome or a trio that I feel good about. But one of them individually having to play bulk minutes, I'm a little worried about that, Chuck, because I think for Horford, it means he's going to be taxed. He might be at age 39, not feeling too hot, going deep into games. For Post, I think he's still a little too green for me to feel good specifically on the defensive end. But he can shoot the hell out of the ball, and they need guys who can knock down threes, that's for sure.
I've been telling you a lot about these Rockets quarters, and I got to, again, give you an assessment from one of those games. It was it really kind of stamps my approval on what Quinton Post is as a player at this point. And I mean, he's a chess master. He's a smart dude by all accounts. You're good at chess. You're most likely smart. And he is, and he's a smart basketball player. However, he's limited in a lot of the things he can do. His ceiling, it's only so high. Amazing shooter, but not the quickest feet in the world. Not the most physically dominant player in the world. Not much of a post game. Despite his last name, he's doing most everything from the perimeter. QP has a pretty nice ability to roll to the bucket, to hit that dunker spot, to kind of know where he's supposed to be offensively at all times, and was watching one of those highlights, and Jimmy Butler did a good job of giving it to him down low. Like, what do you think of that part of post game? Just the ability to process, knowing where he's supposed to be, and not getting burnt a whole ton in terms of just his assignments.
Yeah, I think Post, the step that he's going to have to take this season will be on defense. Now, fortunately, I think he's a pretty smart defender. I think he's pretty intelligent. It's just the foot speed that he might lack, but he's also tough. You know, I think that's an underrated aspect of his game as well. The physicality that he plays with on that end, and another year in the league. You know, he was able to stay healthy. Maybe more minutes changes that a bit for him this year, but I don't think he's supposed to be their number one big. And if he is, it's because he's done his homework and he's taken a massive leap, you know. So I think Quinton Post is someone that, again, you know, the Warriors coming into this year have another young complementary role player to rely on. They haven't found the star of the future, but they do have a lot of guys that I think can supplement what the big three of Curry and Butler and Draymond are able to do.
Josh Giddey of the Chicago Bulls gets 4 years, $100 million. He was the first domino to fall of all those. I guess Cam Johnson was, or excuse me, Cam Thomas. But Josh Giddey, 4 years, $100 million. I mean, that's the restricted free agency domino that falls in terms of someone signing. How does this affect Jonathan Kuminga?
I think it's really separate. I mean, the thing about Giddy is he wants to be in Chicago. He just wanted to make $30 million. But he always wanted to stay with the Bulls, and the Bulls, because they traded for him, they wanted to keep him. So the difference to me between Kaminga and Giddy is that there was a reasonable expectation that a compromise was in the future. I don't think there's any compromise between the camp of Kaminga and the Warriors right now. So, you know, each and every day we get closer to October 1st, Chuck, I think it becomes more likely that he signs the qualifying offer, and that the Warriors, if they are to avoid that future, which I think is pertinent and important, they're going to have to meet him a little more halfway. So I think that the Giddy market maybe is good for next offseason, you know, perhaps for what Kaminga could look to command in free agency if he gets there. Cam Thomas as well. But I think that the situation is different because there's a mutual affinity for each other, which there doesn't appear to be in Golden State.
Does it for the show today. This is Locked On Warriors, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.